I have to prove that TJ can work his mind. That's what we're going to prove. As TJ, you back?
No. How are you doing,
All right.
Cubby? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're doing great.
Nice.
It's a heck of a start to what should be a heck of a day of games, TJ, as things are getting spicy as we move throughout Proving Grounds. We got an upper bracket matchup and a lower bracket bout that both teams are playing for their tournament lives.
You're absolutely right. We've got a very exciting day of games. I had an intro all prepared. I nailed the intro, and then I noticed a little blinking light over there. I was like, damn. It's all over, Cubby. Let's take a look at that schedule that you were just talking up, because, as you said, we do have very exciting games ahead of us. Our first match today is going to be Wildcard Red taking on Resolve. You can see the very top half of the bracket, and I believe we are one tick down right now. Here we go. So Wildcard Red did, of course, knock out 100 Thieves Next 2-0, and Resolve upset Cloud9 Academy 2-0 also, and that's how we're here in a best-of-3 series in the upper bracket. Cubby, you've been really looking forward to this game.
I think it's the top team in Amateur going up against the team that for the second Proving Grounds straight has already pulled off the upset of the tournament. Resolve. They acquired Barrage, and 4 out of the 5 players were on Barrage, and if you were a fan of Proving Grounds in the spring, you would have seen Barrage 2-0ing Team Liquid Academy, the number 2 seed Academy team in the spring. They did it the same. It's a rinse and repeat. It's a different blue team, but it's still C9 altogether, and that puts Resolve up against Wildcard Red as someone has to try and challenge the top dogs of Amateur. Resolve has been trying to get that chance all year. They have their chance to do it today.
And we only have one screen for the bottom half of the bracket for some reason.
It's getting wild, that's why.
Okay, well, down here in the wild, we're going to be broadcasting TSM Academy versus Golden Guardians Academy. 2 teams that I don't think either of us expected to be cast out into the wild so early on in this bracket.
They had a really tough quadrant of 4 Academy teams, the other ones being EGA and 100A, who are going through roster changes, but still proved to be a formidable opponent as they put TSM down in the lower bracket. Now both teams playing for their tournament lives, something that I think coming into this tournament, no one would have had either of those teams as, being a bottom 4 team. I know some tier lists were flying around, some rankings, but one of those teams is going to end up bottom 4ing because of that draw, and that's a lot of ramifications on the line, and any hopes of making it through Proving Grounds, making a long run, now has to be done flawlessly, as that one loss has already been expended. Both teams will be looking to make that run throughout the lower bracket.
Let's talk about our upper bracket match, though, because that is, of course, our first game of the day. Resolve versus Wildcard Red. And I want to just take a step back even from this match in particular and talk about these 2 rosters, starting with Resolve. This is a roster, like you said, we've seen here before. They used to be known as Barrage. They got acquired. A little bit of a retooling, but this is the same core 4. And they did the same thing, which is upset an Academy team in the first round. But many people don't have them favored in this match today.
It's a tough task, and the expectation for Wildcard is top 4. That's expected. But when you have a former LCS MVP and LCK champion on your roster like Arrow, your expectations are usually pretty high going into the tournaments, especially given the fact that Wildcard Red, they haven't lost a tournament. They've won everything they've played in so far. Now, that hasn't included the Academy teams, but already off to a rip-roaring start here. Focusing, though, on Resolve. This is a roster, to me, that's very interesting because these players, they had opportunities to take other opportunities from the spring to the summer. And they didn't decide to go with that. Instead, they decided to stick together. These players believe in this team, believe in each other, and find their belief paying off with every win they put on the scoreboard for Proving Grounds, because taking down Cloud9 Academy right off the bat, that's a pretty good start to the tournament. And moving on from there, they could have a chance to knock down another top dog in Wildcard Red, who, like I've been saying, I think Resolve had really been trying to get another shot at Wildcard Red, as the only one they had was it didn't go their way.
Cubby, do I have your permission to read this quote we got from APA about Wildcard Red?
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Okay, because I don't want to start any wars, but you reached out to APA ahead of time and you asked him, you know, how do you feel about facing Wildcard Red? They're on a real tear. He said, and I quote from Always Plan Ahead, I don't think Wildcard Red is anything special compared to other Academy teams. They have one good player that I'm scared of, but we can easily beat anyone else.
Wow. Yeah. I believe he followed that up with just wants to prove that they are an overhyped team, which APA, he's the one, he always likes to, you know, make things interesting beforehand, and I always do
tweets.
appreciate that. Yeah. Before the Rift and on the Rift with, you know, the Nico, the Aurelion Sol. We'll see if we get to see any of that, but I think that this is a team that, given what happened in the spring, the fact that Noorg, a team from Amateur, did win it all, and then we have Wildcard Red come in the second split, and unlike Noorg didn't win all the tournaments leading up to Proving Grounds. Wildcard Red have. And not only have they won the tournaments, they have dominated every single tournament there. Even dominating this one, the first games they had against Hunter Next were heavily in their favor. Hunter Next, of course, did have some roster changes coming into the tournament, but still, Wildcard Red, they're on a mission to make Proving Grounds an Amateur dynasty yet again. And if Amateur has any chance of, you know, taking everything home in this tournament, all those chips, all those chances were put on Wildcard Red going in. So Resolve has yet another opportunity to try and play the upset, play the devil, and knock Wildcard Red down to that lower bracket.
They are a team that consistently punches above their weight class, both in the last season with that TLA knockdown and here already in this bracket. Let's talk about the heavyweight in the room, though. That is, of course, over on the Wildcard Red side. You had a turn of phrase you really liked. You were talking about how this is a team of redemption stories.
It really feels that way for me, as I think Wildcard Red and just seeing how they've come together. I mean, this is a team where at any point in time, I think some of these players have been like looked down upon. For example, Winston on Solo Fide, a lot of people are calling him the weakest link last split on that team. I think that he has come out and proven everyone wrong along with everyone else on this roster. I mean, Arrow, going from being an LCK champ to an LCS MVP, he still wants to compete at the highest level, and he is competing at the highest level in these tournaments as he has been dominating the playing field. And you surround him by other members who, Brandini, was a sub for CLG in the spring, now has a full-time home. Subbing in late, as Doko was picked up by TLA, he was the original starting top laner for this roster. But Brandini has been fantastic in these tournaments. He's played great. Bradley used to go by a different IGN, used to go by Freeze. Now he's someone that everyone's hyping up as potentially the best amateur mid laner and someone that a lot of people are looking at Academy offers for, kind of like what we saw with Fire last split. And you just look at everyone on this team, it feels like they've really banded together, put aside some of the negative storylines that would have had in the past and have written their own. That's just has been nothing but golden trophies, gold medals at the end of the tunnel. So we're going to have to see if they can continue that here, because obviously the competition, it is higher, it's tougher, but so far Wildcard Red, they've been up to it.
Nothing but dubs for Wildcard Red, and they'll have to do it again here. Let's talk about the man at the top of this slot here, Brandini, because Coach Cubby, it is my understanding that you have drafted against this man in your CLOL team.
So, Brandini did not have the pleasure of trying to draft against him, but Bradley, I did.
Oh,
and that was very difficult. Bradley, of course, plays for Bethany University, or Bethany Esports, I should say. In the collegiate space, I coach Miami University, Ohio. We played a LAN against him at Gateway. 5 bans was not enough. 6 on blue side if you get the first pick something. That guy is just an absolute terror on Melee Champions. And so, first-hand experience with how good Bradley is, and actually surprised to see Wildcard Red banning out some APA's champions away from him, as Resolve is taking away all mid laners from Bradley, as it is just 5 bans thrown at the mid lane already. And guess what, TJ? Aurelion Sol is still on the table.
Yeah, I was going to say that. We are banning out all the mid laners here, but there is still an A-Sol up, and that A-Sol will remain in the cards. The reason we're hyping up this Aurelion Sol,
give me the numbers, is
because APA, I'm going to say the stat, Covey, has an 82% win rate on Aurelion Sol. Across 5 games, it is 5-0 this season. He is terrifying on a very out-of-meta character because it allows him to get out on the map and contest the sidelines very effectively, roam across the map, which is why you see like that Twisted Fate banned away, because that's what APA is known for. So I'm really interested to see whether or not we're going to get the lock-in here. And if they're allowing the lock-in, what Wildcard's plan is to contain APA in this game?
Well, so far it looks like it might be a mid lane kingdom, as that Aurelia taken for Bradley, another champion that's very scary from him, doesn't get his hands on it often, but with Wildcard and how dominant they've been, you get some pretty absurd win rates on the champions that they have. One of the most absurd is actually Arrow, whose most played throughout this entire split has been Aphelios. And in 19 plays, Arrow is 16-3 on that champion. So Resolve, even though Array hasn't been prioritizing Aphelios as much, it looks like Resolve, their game plan, they do not want to get Arrow that Aphelios. Instead, will select it for themselves with that first pick, which opens up a very powerful mid-jungle duo for the side of Wildcard Red. And I'm curious if they end up grabbing a Ziggs here on 3, because Arrow hasn't shown Ziggs yet, but with two 80 or physical damage characters locked in so far, magic damage is needed, and that could be it. You're getting excited. I see he does this all the time, TJ. Don't fall for it.
It's hovered. Okay, I do want to flag as we're waiting for the hover to be locked in, as I'm sure it will be. That Thresh did get banned out, which means the PCL doesn't have, yes, he has the Aphelios, but he doesn't have the other part of that duo, which means it's going to be a little bit harder to stay alive, as the Aphelios is a little bit more static, especially into the double threat of Lee Sin Aurelia, which is presumably why we just got Trundle Braum, two of the most defensive characters still on the cards.
And this is looking like a similar formula that Resolve used to win Game 1 of their series going up against Cloud9 Academy, which was wait out the early game and get to a point where Array can teamfight. Because Array, he is the youngest, the least experienced player in this game, and on Resolve, he isn't the strongest laner, but man, in teamfights, his positioning, it's very solid. It's so good. And the big key for Resolve is going to be getting to that point in the game, because going into this, Resolve has the lowest gold diff at 15 in the tournament. At 15 minutes, they're on average down 3,296 gold. Wildcard has the highest. They're up almost 5,000 gold at the 15-minute mark. So early game and getting through that for Resolve is going to be important. And so far, they have a lot of champions that need to scale, as Wildcard are looking to blow up that early game with the early picks they've selected.
And as you highlighted with that stat, Wildcard are really good at blowing out those lanes. And one lane they're particularly worried about is Arrow v Array, which, as you very correctly highlighted, Array is really scary in teamfights. This entire Resolve org is. They are terrifying once they get into the 5v5s. But Arrow's really scary in lane. Arrow's really good at just winning those 2v2 lane duels before you can even get to the team fights. So I'm going to be measuring how much damage Wildcard and Arrow are able to do to Array, who, as of right now, as of 3 picks into this draft, carries kind of the majority, if not all, of their teamfight damage on his shoulders.
And even though Arrow hasn't shown Ziggs yet, you can see that Resolve still taking away the magic damage characters, because they realize that Wildcard does lack that magic damage. They're going to have to find it elsewhere, as Arrow, this is his second most played, a good pick into Aphelios, but instead, something more lane dominant, it's going to be the Caitlyn.
Yeah, definitely a drive to shut down that Aphelios in lane, exactly what we talked about. The Varus would also have that opportunity, but a little less lockdown, a little less aggression, and I think that's what we're aiming for here with the Caitlyn. Well, no, we've gone through the second ban phase. That ASOL is still available, so I'm just getting my hopes up again. I'm just raising those hopes to see if we can get it out of APA. He'll go for the Victor instead, recognizing, I think, what we were talking about, which is kind of all the damage in this game was currently in their AD carry, so they'll have another scaling option there in the mid lane as a result. And we're just waiting on PCL.
PCL's choices, he had his first 2 Ornn games of the split in the last series, as he was put very far behind early, but managed to be impactful as the game went on. And it looks like that's the strategy yet again from Resolve. It's full scaling coming out from them, so our eyes really have to be on Winston in the early game. If Winston is able to just get around the map to do what he can do, that's going to be the danger for Resolve as Wildcard. They still need magic damage in that kit. The Gwen could be a good option for them, as Brandini is undefeated on the Gwen 3-0 throughout all of Proving Grounds. So this is locked in, which it is. It will be the choice for Brandini. Will be what is rounding out Wildcard's composition for Game 1.
So I think we have a very clear identity for both these teams. Wildcard want to get out on the map early, threaten those sidelines, use Winston's Lee Sin as a tool to boost them out ahead, and shut down what is the resolve win condition, which is they still need to be in this game at the 15-minute mark. And if they are, then their team fight is really scary. Then Array and APA have the potential from the backlines of those highly coordinated resolved team fights to just win the game with no trouble whatsoever. But what are the odds, Covey, that they get there versus Winston's Lee Sin, Bradley's Aurelia, and Arrow's Kate?
Low. They're going to be down something. And this is part of what we expected in this matchup. We knew that Resolve against Cloud9, they were going for scaling, because something we've been harping on is how good this team fights. Their ability to take fights in the correct place, to position around those. APA and Array are fantastic at positioning. Fnatic is able to make plays, and PCL, he bounced back very well in those games where he was put very far behind by Darshan and Shurnfire, but still managed to pull things together and help his team get the 2 wins in the end. So it's really going to have to be on Resolve. Like, how can they lose gracefully? How can they only be down 2.5, 3k gold at the 15-minute mark? Because that would be about on par, on pace for what we expect for these names.
Covey, it's going to test their resolve.
Well done. That's, you know what, TJ, you're always the wild card for me, so.
Good lord. I was ready for it as well. I was going to say that the wild card over on Wildcard was Winston. I was going to make that transition, but you beat me to the punch. Let's talk about Winston a bit, though. I don't have the pun for it. But you were mentioning earlier about kind of the redemption arc that Wildcard is on. Winston has had a very harsh journey through the League of Legends scene till now. He had a really rough season in the Academy League, and as we get into game, I want to talk about just how dominant he's been here now that he's on a team that seems to play to his strengths, and perhaps now that he's found his strengths.
And talking with Morgan, or ADFX, the coach of Wildcard, he was most impressed with the fact that Winston is not only a good player with a view of how the game should be played for him, but also for his team. He's really good at communicating, this is what I want, this is what we're going to do, this is the game plan that we have. And I think being on this roster, Winston has really come into his own, because on the Solo Fide team, surrounded by seasoned players like Apollo, like Zazel, I think that the community was quick to pick on Winston, who wasn't as seasoned of a player, wasn't having the best performances. But man, has he bounced back, and he is undeniably, I think, the top jungler that we had in amateur. And you can't really argue with that, the fact that he has 3 trophies in his trophy case now from the tier 2s.
I mean, it reminds me a lot of what happened to Mike Young, where in the LCS and Academy play, he was expected to play more scaling threats. Winston on Graves was like all we saw for his Academy season. And now that he's back in Amateur and he's playing that more fast, aggressive style that Proving Grounds has been known for in North America, that is slowly infecting the LCS. I see you, EG. It feels like the playstyle that these junglers who came up through the system maybe a little too early can thrive alongside other players who are of their generation, to use a dramatic term.
We're going to have to see if Winston can do that and can perform to the level that we've seen him perform at in this one. As diving into this game, TJ, looks like mirrored starts for both of these junglers. And for the side of Wildcard, I think all eyes do have to be on Winston, on Damtion, to be the playmakers, because you can see how these lanes are playing out. It is shove all across the map. It is a full court press coming out from Wildcard. It should give Winston a lot of space on this Lee Sin to try and get up in the face of Trundle, try and make some plays for his laners.
And so we're paying attention to Winston. The other lane we were watching is down here. Arrow versus Array. As Array is so much of this team's late-game team fighting potential, despite being, as you talked about, the youngest player on this roster. There's going to be a ton of pressure on him, and you already see Winston lurking down there, Covey.
He understands that he has priority for that bot crab, especially with Bradley keeping back, but just hovering in case Trundle was going to make any creative plays, as it looks like Fnatic did take his red and actually pathing towards bot, so this means that Fnatic is probably going to seed the double crabs, as he's just going for the full clear. He knows that he doesn't have priority anywhere on the Rift, and already advantaged Wildcard early.
Yep, Winston sees that second crab cross the ward. Shout out to observers for catching that. He'll just roam up. Bradley and Winston high five in the middle of the map. APA season pass. Let's talk about this mid lane, because APA
didn't like
is
the high five. He ran away. He flashed away from that high five.
APA, you know, he's being intimidated by this high five, but he's also so much of the damage threat for Resolve, just in terms of raw stats on this Victor.
You see Fnatic now hovering just to make sure that he's not hovering here for a gank at all. Just wants to make sure that APA is able to fix that lane state, as Winston now roaming back over. We see a play attempted, but Winter's here to cover as well.
Wow. Both supports have actually roamed up. Daption's here as well. Hiller is deployed, maybe to try and find an angle onto Bradley, who's poked down during this exchange. But it's just like a three-way high five. Group huddle. Now we're back to business.
Gotta huddle up to make the game plans. As the good thing for Resolve there, as funky as that might have looked for the viewers, it did fix APA's wave state. Now he gets that wave to bounce into him instead of being frozen on Bradley's side of the map. And a Victor with no flash with a frozen lane on him is a mincemeat for an Aurelia Lee Sin. So it was an intelligent play from Resolve to go help APA out as a team, make sure that he's good to go. As TJ, quiet game state early. This is good for Resolve, and I really want to see if Wildcard are able to set up a successful first Dragon and snowball that into a successful first Rift Herald as well, to try and take advantage of the fact they have these winning lane states.
Yeah, I think it's very good for Resolve that they haven't seen any of Winston yet. That Winston's time has been spent trying to back up Bradley and mid. I think that's a very good demonstration of how Resolve have been able to influence the map so far and force it into this null state.
I think it's the reason that we also see them selecting the fact that they're going full scaling, right? And taking something like a Felios Victor that's... you have to play well to lose gracefully in the early game to make sure that you do not get blown out, especially by the team Wildcard Red, who has the highest goal differential in the tournament at 15, up nearly 5k gold on average. So this is Resolve, a different style from Resolve. We're used to, seeing them fight around the 3rd, 4th Dragon, that being their strength. Now, they're going late, man. They want the 3rd, 4th Dragon just to try and sneak that away and make sure that it's no soul for Wildcard, because they're learning how to seed everything, learning how to lose gracefully, and then taking advantage of their true strength, which is team fighting at the later stages.
I kind of want a Coach Cubby perspective on that, because this is something that I, as a caster in various games, am always really harsh on. Whenever I see a team not be able to seed objectives, not be able to lose in a controlled manner, it seems like that's something that's very difficult to teach players to do.
It's frustrating, like sitting in practices where you're picking full scaling at times, because a lot of the answers are, like, hey, can we make this play? Or, am I going to make this play? It's just no. And you have to accept that and then find creative solutions as the game goes on to play from behind. And that creative solution, it really lies in PCL's TP. As you can tell, his TP, it's still up. He's okay sacking some CS to keep that teleport up, to have the fact that they can just threaten that across the map. It's Wildcard Red going to make their first proactive play of the game, taking away this blue buff.
APA and Fnatic watch on as it is yoinked away. That was tragic. Pull the Forge God does arc through them twice. Winston with the flash to stay alive. Oh, there's a big knock up from the quickness, and Winter's forced to flash over the wall. He's dead. First blood goes to Wildcard. Daption survives on no HP, and everyone will get away. Resolve down a man, nothing in response.
Big win for Wildcard. Not only do they win the fight in a 4v5, but also they get the TP out of APA, who has to go catch this bot wave to make sure that not too many resources are lost on the side of Resolve, because Arrow, he wasn't at the fight. He was just free hitting this bot turret, having some good old free time on Caitlyn, taking those free plates. APA has to go down and deny that, and I'm surprised that Resolve looked for that play. I think they thought that they had the numbers advantage with Array and Winter here, but it just wasn't enough to get out of the powerful early game that Aurelia has.
I mean, you group up, you get double stunned, double knocked up. The fight is just over at that point. Wildcard do a very good job of disengaging. They did spend an awful lot of cooldowns here, so it could have been dangerous if they'd hung around. But they understand how to get out of the fight. Resolve don't really have the tools to chase them down.
That will change as the game goes on, but it's important that Resolve, once again, just doesn't fall too far behind early as Winter.
He's fine.
He navigated the traps.
Wind.
He avoided the trap, quite literally.
Arrow knows that someone's stealing his ward, but he can't do anything about it.
And as we kind of bounce back from that play, that post play, we really want to keep our eyes on Winston. Looks like he's going to clear his bot side camps here for the red side, but I expect him to make a play towards that Rift Herald rather soon, as that is an important objective for Wildcard, because taking those plates, taking that first brick is important for this team, and snowballing this game forward. They have options of where to drop that, but they have to secure it first. And that will require Daption making a move, and they have a choice about whether or not they want Arrow to follow. So we're going to have to see how Wildcard navigates this one, because that fight was won, because Resolve have selected the team they did, they're going to be the ones that are able to initiate that play. Resolve will have to respond. It looks like they're going to initiate that play now.
Okay, Wildcard looking at all their forces up here towards the middle of the map. Daption and Co rotating up. APA alone, but watching as the kind of hunger line passes by.
And this was spotted on a ward. And the good news for Resolve is that they're trying to crash this, but Daption, even though everything's spotted, they know they can't contest it. They don't have the tools. So Winston just once again gets to solo this out.
You're on a ward, Daption! He knows!
He doesn't
He
care,
has
man.
the critical information.
You see that last grand entrance? I don't think Daption cares about vision. His
Mm.
engages on Recon have been pretty damn good this tournament. It's a third play on it, carried the first two. Now we're going to have to see what Winston does with this eye, as a love tap there from PCL.
Winston down to about half his HP after that exchange. So, reset across the board from Wildcard. They try to make that roam play up towards the top side, maybe get a little more aggressive. Both it doesn't work, and also it's not needed, because Resolve are not interested in contesting for that top side of the map, and Resolve, as you talked about earlier, know that they are better off the more they seed right now.
This 1.5k gold deficit for Resolve is honestly kind of on the pace, on par with what we were expecting. This is a team comp where you are opting into losing every single lane that you picked. With the Ornn, with the Victor. It's a slow game pace for Resolve, and the fact that Wildcard is up is expected, but the game's not broken yet. And I think that the real important objective for Resolve here is going to be that mid lane turret. If they're able to keep that turret alive, Caitlyn's good at sieging, the rest of Wildcard is not. So it might be a way to threaten them and to make sure that they can't get into your jungle camps and get access to those, which could help Resolve kind of steady out this game, as I expect the second dragon to be seeded as well. As Resolve, they're bringing Ornn down. Brandini doesn't have TP, so there's a small window they can look, but they still can't contest with the gold value.
Yeah, what should Resolve be doing here is the question.
Picking up as many side waves as you can and just stalling out Dragon as much as you can, man. You're just paying. You're gonna give away gold for any second that you can take to just get more levels on all the characters you have. That's really where we're at right now for Resolve. Is that everything's gonna be seeded once again? They're just gonna try and eat these waves. They missed their window to make a play, so everything goes to Wildcard for free.
Rough times over on the Resolve camp, but it was forecasted. They looked at their company balance sheet and made these projections. Steal it, Winter. I believed. Arrow might step a little bit too far forward here. He's caught inside the glacial fissure, but will be able to get away, blowing a flash and a ghost to make a hasty retreat.
It does mean that Caitlyn could be targeted by Ornn ult as the game goes on, but right now we see Wildcard trying to make that proactive play with Rift Herald. I said they had options. They could have used it mid and tried to secure the second one, then maybe take the mid tower for free. Instead, they want to funnel gold onto Bradley, make sure he's good to side. And is this die?
No. It almost does.
That was close.
That was very good. Resolve pulling out the MMO strats. Prepping for the new Riot MMO. Able to manage those cooldown cycles almost perfectly.
It's a nice plug there, TJ. We didn't have to do that one.
I got paid for it. I don't know if you're not getting paid for those, but...
Gotta talk to someone.
So that turret down in the bottom lane is now incredibly low, which has benefits for Bradley, who collected all those plates, but also benefits for Arrow, who should be able to collect the turret break gold when he gets back down there.
And this is, once again, about on par, going with the forecast. Usually weathermen aren't right. I'm trying my best here, TJ.
What?
Yeah.
That is misinformation and slander. Weathermen have an incredible record. You have to be a
not
meteorologist. Those people on your television aren't just like presenters. They go to school for that, Cubby.
Not in fall in the Midwest, man. It's you can never guess what's going on out here. But trying to guess what's going on.
You should become a meteorologist and try.
I just slandered something I know nothing about. TJ's calling me out.
My father was a meteor. That's not true. Array is holding the bottom lane, and overall, Resolve are playing safe on the map as Wildcard. They don't quite have a weatherman on their side, but they're licking their fingers, sticking it up in the air. And I think, from that, they should be able to figure out what's going on for Resolve, which is, hey, Resolve are playing this slow and safe, trying to extend the game. So let's kind of flip the script. We've been talking an awful lot about what Resolve need to do to keep this game going. How do Wildcard start shutting things down here?
Crack mid. That mid lane turret is difficult to crack against Victor, especially with TP. But if they are able to knock it down, that helps get them access to jungle camps, take away those golden resources, and then helps you try and extend this lead. Getting Bradley first brick on this Aurelia, important step towards that as well. As you can see, mythic items are just starting to be finished up by everyone on the Rift, but there's still a couple missing on the side of Resolve due to that gold deficit they have. So Wildcard, they have a point where at these first mythics and the champions they have, they're rather strong at the moment, and they could try and force something. The other issue that's going to happen, though, is that we talk so much about the Resolve team fight, but no one can contest Wildcard in the side lanes. Gwen, Aurelia are going to get out of control in the side lanes, and this is going to be a difficult game for Resolve to win, because not only do they have to come back from this deficit, not only do they have to fish for the team fights, but Wildcard have to give them those team fights. They always have the option to just send Gwen, send Aurelia in the two side lanes, and no singular member from Resolve can ever contest either of those champions. So that's going to be a very difficult thing for them to deal with as this game goes on as well.
Yeah. Rough for Resolve, but I like laying that out for Wildcard. Because I do think at this point, we're at the 15-minute mark. We're kind of nearing the spikes for Resolve. We're kind of getting close to the time where Resolve can step up and start fighting. And, you know, they've almost run the marathon.
It's like if you cash the check, well, like, the money hasn't hit the account yet, you know?
Right.
You got one item, you need two. That's what Resolve is looking at right now.
You're like, no, I swear, I'm good for it.
I mean,
I break your legs anyway.
The first analogy I made was, you know, weather, so I had to go for banking next. Naturally, the most interesting topic I could think of afterwards.
Yeah, if you just followed up with golf, we'll have hit the Cubby trifecta.
There it is. One reference down.
Gotta have one per broadcast.
Get the bingo cards out.
Resolve playing in the middle of our map, just pushing forward a little bit more aggressively. As I talked about, they have completed those first items, and so a little bit more frisky for this next Drake.
But while Resolve is trying to take control of this area now, it's still good for Wildcard, because Winston, yet again, gets a free Rift Herald. We talked about the importance of breaking that mid lane turret. It's an option for it, but instead they're going for Arrow, who still has Splashdown.
Still has Splashdown for a couple of seconds, and he's going to think about it on the grey screen as he's blown up in the middle of the map. And this could be huge. The Drake is up in just a second.
It is, but they have to respond, because there's still the threat of a Shelly in the side lane, them grabbing two turrets off of that, which looks like Winston and Brandini might be syncing up to do, as they want to funnel gold into those side laners, and Resolve, while they get a kill, while they take the dragon, they're going to lose a lot of gold for it.
Oh, trouble! He's pulled out from behind the turret. PCL goes down. Excellent execution from Winston. And it won't quite be this second turret down yet. APA has the wave clear to ensure that. But it's a pretty even gold trade on the map, maintaining Wildcard's lead. The only way it's like a surefire win is that soul win condition has been taken off the table. Wildcard are not going to be able to speedrun to soul completion.
Yeah, given the fact that top inner turret stands, I think overall it's worth it for Resolve. Right? You stall it out 5 minutes, you trade about evenly. That Rift Herald doesn't take the mid lane turret, which I think is a very important objective for Wildcard, and you stop extra gold going on over to the side laner in Brandini, as this is good tracking of summoner spells from Resolve. They noticed that Caitlyn's flash was down. She's dead on the map with her flash now up in the death chamber, so really good punish coming in from PCL. He just takes a bit of a greedy path back. The Rock, he can't walk into three members like that. In Wildcard, they catch him out.
Very cleanly picked up by Winston as well. Beautiful insec. Oh, when you see those.
Never gets
See how
old
we
with
go?
Lee Sin, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We go in the middle of the map with Gravitum landing onto 2. Flash is up for Arrow, so they weren't really in danger, but it's about the message, Cubby.
I believe Daption also has tenacity in his runes there. So he was able to escape that route rather quickly.
He just kept walking.
Yeah, it was well played from Daption, who talked about his recon's been really good. Oh, that one comes up short.
Force the flash. Gravitum does nail down Daption on the long flank. Winston doesn't find anything. Winter's now here. PCL as well. Flash blown by Arrow. Oh, he's caught out. Winston ward hops over the wall, trying to get to safety. But in the meantime, Brandini pushes forward and builds space for Winston to get away. Resolve need to play through this choke point, and their damage numbers just aren't there yet.
That was a good setup from Resolve. The fact that that engage did come up short from Daption. I thought they were going to be able to turn it, but APA wasn't quite there. Ornn wasn't able to have the health bar to really tank enough damage for the damage from Aphelios to come out and turn it. But still a nice sidestep and a good juke from Array. We've been very complimentary of Array's ability to teamfight. That's one where sidestepping that skill shot from Daption, that missed engage, it did cost Wildcard a little bit of tempo. They won't be able to knock down this mid turret, which we keep on saying is a pretty important objective for him at the moment.
Doesn't have flash though, so Winston's thinking about it. Array says, mess around and find out. Throws down the turret, sits behind his own. And that's enough to scare Winston away. Nothing more terrifying than a confident Aphelios.
I love the way that Array is managing his guns as well. Having red-white into Aurelia, Lee Sin, Gwen, now shifting over to green-white, can help you wave clear, can help you deter any sieging coming in from Arrow. It's something that we look for with really good Aphelios players, and something small that isn't always, taught or pointed out from these pro players, but still trying to min-max everything possible. Array's doing it, even with his gun control here on Aphelios.
Winston, Daption, Arrow in mid, completing a 1-3-1 split on the map for Wildcard. As kinda, I don't know, running out of runway, Cubby. Still a 6k gold lead. Yeah, so it feels strange to be saying that, but we're at the 20-minute mark, and we're about to have a very scary team-fighting Resolve on the map. Have Wildcard done enough?
Aurelia and Gwen are huge. So I still think that things are okay, and they can always get priority in the side lanes to get a teleport flank or create a really awkward angle for Resolve to deal with. But if Wildcard are going to go for these fights, still important that they win, because you don't want to give Resolve any more space, because after this point, past this dragon, ornaments are going to start coming in. It's a lot of hidden gold. Aphelios is already sitting on 2 items with that LDR completed, so if he wants to go Infinity Edge next, that can be difficult to deal with, and Ray's actually ahead of Caitlyn on the power curve. As
oh no.
A lethal turret, 22 minutes, but it falls, and that does open things up a little bit for Wildcard now.
Really sad. Array just didn't have the right guns to clear out that wave.
Hey, he denied local gold. Maybe it's Gigabrand.
Oh. Didn't realize we had denies now. Winston in. Flash, kick, wrong direction. APA knocked towards Bradley, but he'll just flash away from that and reset in the fight. And APA's actually found huge damage. Winter's still alive. Bradley with the backline dive. Finally shuts down APA, but he traced 1-for-1. PCL's now arrived, and Brandini's doing the damage. He's got 3 already. Fnatic and PCL on the run. They will make it back to their turret and survive the exchange. 2 for 3. Wildcard out ahead.
Bradley was able to get into the backline, pretty much trade himself for Victor, and then Array fell down as well at the hands and the scissors of Brandini. And the fact that Wildcard, we talked about the Goldie, talked about the strength, it's tough for, they have a lot of tools, Resolve does, but it's still tough for them to really figure out how to posture these team fights at the moment, and one misstep is not enough. And look at Bradley. Everyone's focusing on him at the moment, but he's still able to trade on out, and then Brandini trades out for Array as positioning of Resolve's carries there. Flash isn't available for Array. Wildcard able to get the best of that one thanks to some TPs, and thanks to the strength that those champions have because of what they picked early.
Yeah, you're not allowed to run with scissors or run away from these scissors. Brandini just standing in the middle of the fight, and everyone, as you talk about, is focusing in on Bradley, which does result in a 1-for-1 trade. But then nobody has stopped Brandini from just slicing and dicing. There's Array, middle of the map. Caught out a little bit by Arrow. They've not got a turret to retreat to, so this is actually very scary, but Array turns it. He steps up. Fnatic cannot soak this damage. He's got to back away. 1-for-1. Brandini shut down in this fight by Array. Winter already dead, so they need another for it to be an even trade. Daption is going to be chased by a very nice prediction from VCL, but I don't think that will result in anything.
Still Wildcard trading up. Brandini does fall, though, thanks to all the damage from Array. You can see that the Aphelios and, once again, Array's ability to control those guns. Infernum plus Graviton. You can spread the roots. Get CC. Open up some more space for yourself. Array's doing this very well. It's really helping Resolve at least try and steady the ship, but this is still all Wildcard. And we knew it was going to be that way early game from the draft, but Wildcard's ability, they win the fight, and Bradley gets the inner turret in the bot lane, giving him a big gold injection on this Aurelia. And looking at the CS leads and looking at the inventories, Resolve still can't compete with the side laners of Wildcard, who were just given a free early game and are doing too much with it for Resolve to deal with and try and come back from now.
Yeah. Array does get the shutdown there, so a little bit more gold inside the pockets of the carries who need it. And we will focus in on that, as it is APA and Array who you need to keep your eyes on in these fights. They're doing damage now. It's scary. The Wildcard are keeping their own assassins far enough ahead that Bradley, for instance, is having to run away from APA, sure, but he's also able to run away from APA, despite this being a late-game victor.
APA was able to sidestep the ultimate there from Aurelia.
Really cool.
Nice little move there on Victor. Of course, he did opt for Fleet of Footwork, which did see some changes. Wonder if that extra move speed helped him get out of that.
He's schmoozing, Hubby.
Yeah. As Resolve, difficulty they're into now. They're behind at this point of the game. Baron's now on the map. Their side lanes are getting pushed in, and mid, they can't compete for priority. So this Baron dance for Wildcard is going to start to get very lethal.
Brandini, why are you over here? He's kind of caught out here.
Okay.
PCL, though, just half HP'd by him. Brandini's caught out of position, and he wins the 1v3. And this means it's gone from bad to worse. Array has to burn flash just to survive the pressure. It will only be APA that dies, but that is enough for Wildcard to turn their sights towards this Baron.
And I don't think Resolve can contest this, but they might have to, as Array had to burn flash in that engagement. So let's see if Wildcard can punish the flash being down, or if Resolve even attempts to walk in here as Baron already low.
Already low, flash of the wall from Brandini to challenge Winter. Baron is picked up. Resolve just have to run. But you've got Daption already on their tail, trying to cut them off. Looks like they're not too interested in chasing, and Resolve will be able to slink away.
This is the style that gave Resolve success against Cloud9, gave them success later parts of PG. But it's too much for Wildcard, as giving them the full court press, giving them the Lee Sin. Even with Resolve's best attempts to stall this game out, TJ, it's just not enough against Wildcard, who have quietly taken now a 10k gold lead across the map and are looking to shut this game out with this Baron.
And there was a point a couple of minutes ago where this game felt very close, where it really did only need one good teamfight from Resolve to turn it. The Wildcard didn't engage in any full team fighting. They didn't think they could win. They were very good about picking their fights. And now they've kind of left the danger zone. Tom Cruise is unemployed. And Wildcard have this game in the bag, it feels like.
It's all off the back of the scissors from Brandini, as scissors do beat Rock in that matchup up top. And especially when you're granted 6 kills, and you were as fed as Brandini is, he's been doing a lot of work in these team fights on this Gwen. Very difficult for Resolve to deal with. I think a nice R5 pick that really has helped break the backs of Resolve in this game.
Is Ornn a rock? He's like metal, isn't he?
He was for the bit, you know?
Okay.
We're gonna run with it.
Sure, thank you.
It's not Malphite, but we're...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because
like
Malphite's
like... You know? Forge God.
Yeah, but you don't forge rock. That's not what's going on there, Cubby. I mean, yeah, I suppose all metal is technically rock, if you want to get into it, but...
I made a mistake. DJ will not let me live down.
Mid-turret will be shut down. That's the inhibitor exposed, threatened, and taken as well by Wildcard. Oh, not quite. One more order. Arrow, please. There it is.
All right. Boom. Once again, full court press from Wildcard. The fact they have these two strong solo laners means that they can just 1-3-1 easily as Resolve's base is crumbling and they haven't been able to find an engage. That's the second inhibitor now falling.
Yeah, Wildcard looking to take game number 1 very cleanly here as they shove forward. Winston into stasis underneath the turrets. That's a little dangerous, but he will survive the experience. And Brandini yet again gets out the scissors and cleans up the team fight. Only the Nexus turrets remain. Wildcard pushing a little too far forward. Do fall to APA. Nexus turrets now gone. Can APA make the miracle happen? Bradley pulling back. Those minions are going to do it if they're not interrupted. No HP left. APA's got to push forward. He finds one. Winston gets the shutdown, but then Nexus melts. And Wildcard take game number 1.
It's interesting how, you know, the script that we had pitched going into this, Wildcard, the best early game that we have so far in this tournament. Resolve, despite their 2-0, the lowest gold diff at 15. And a lot of that is because how they index their team in draft. We saw both teams, I think, play to their strengths, play to what got them here, and it's still Wildcard. It's just too much to deal with. They're too good. And despite all of Resolve's roams, covers, trying to stall things out, Wildcard found the engages necessary, found the fights necessary to make sure that they utilize that early game advantage and turn that into an easy win.
And let's cast our eyes towards game number 2. Do Resolve come into game 2 with the same game plan? And if they do, what changes do they need to make sure that Wildcard can't run them down during the first 15?
I like the bans that Wildcard threw at Resolve, because this is a very similar team comp to what Resolve ran against C9. But I think the success that they had was because a lot of the playmaking early game and the ability for Resolve to stall to get to those team fights on more even footing comes from Fnatic and APA. They denied these Sin first rotation. They also banned Cinder and Twisted Fate, the two champs that APA played to great success against Cloud9 in the last round. So I think that game plan from Wildcard, once again, these teams are familiar with each other. They've seen each other play a lot in these amateur tournaments. They played a style that we kind of expected out of both of these teams. It's just Wildcard, that full court press and the invading jungler, it's too much to deal with. I want to see them Resolve at least give themselves one winning lane or a leg to stand on, because that's a little bit difficult just going full scaling into Wildcard, especially when you throw on top the fact that Wildcard's a really good team. This is what they've been doing to win all these amateur tournaments, is getting leads early, turning them into quick wins.
Resolve place their money in the late game, and Wildcard don't let them access it. Lock down their bank accounts, Covey. We'll see if the strats change in game number 2, as we're going to go to a lightning fast break and come back with game number 2 of this matchup.